Hello, my friends. It's your host, Phil Larson, and this is your motivational high five on community. Let's do this. Hello and welcome back. You're about to listen to some thoughts from Daja Hardwick on community. I especially love her acronym that she put together at the end with the word community. I love a good acronym. And before we get into that, I just wanted to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is online counseling. If you're looking for some better help than what you're getting right now, that is a good thing to realize. You know, self-help podcasts are good, but really they can only take you so far. You might hit a wall and find that you need some professional help. And that is not a sign of weakness. That is a sign of strength. I highly recommend counseling, and if you want to do it from the comfort of your own home, BetterHelp knows what they're doing. If you use the special link that this podcast has with BetterHelp, you get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp.com/YMH and then the number 5. betterhelp.com/YMH5. It'll get you 10% off, and BetterHelp will get you matched with a counselor in 24 hours. And you can try them out. That's the great thing about counseling is, hey, they understand if it's not working, if you're not feeling comfortable in this situation, then you move on to the next counselor. That is a sign of good counseling, and BetterHelp has a lot of good counselors. So try it out, betterhelp.com/YMH5, the number 5, and get 10% off your first month. And on that note, speaking of counseling, I want to tell you a little bit about our guest voice today. Daja Hardwick is a licensed associate professional counselor who has discovered an undeniable passion in helping the youth manage and overcome mental health concerns and day-to-day issues. She also enjoys expressing herself through fashionable clothing that promotes boldness, freedom, and confidence. If you would like to connect with her on Instagram, search Daja, DAJA_Bree, BRI. Daja_Bree. And here's Daja.
Community. A noun defined as a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. To be included, remembered, and welcomed is a beautiful thing. As a child, I felt no sense of community. I felt like an anomaly, far from being included. Such a mindset followed me into my teenage years and even early adulthood. Over time, I became silent, more reserved, and preferred being alone. For a while, the season of solitude worked for me. Now, the season has expired. The last few years or so, I've craved community. My desire could only be fulfilled if I stepped outside of my comfort zone. I've started to make connections outside of family just through the places I frequent. I've taken advantage of spending 40 hours at work by getting to know coworkers, some which have evolved into friendships. That has led to lunch dates, prayers, wedding invites, random check-ins, and lots of laughs. For the longest, I was hesitant about letting my guard down at work because I didn't want anything to tamper with my bread and butter. But I wanted to make use of getting to know people at a place I spend more than a fraction of my time. After 3 years of not attending church since the outbreak of COVID-19, I found myself back in the church summer 2023. I consistently attended service for about a month and a half. Then I joined the church and rededicated my life to Christ. I instantly felt loved and a part of the community since the very first day I stepped foot into my church. I've since gained a spiritual mother and father, which are my pastors, and sisters and brothers through the congregation. Relationships have been built, house visits have been had, more lunch dates have been added to the calendar, and even pedicure appointments too. I've gained an extended family that serve as prayer and accountability partners, and those that I can rely on to share my highs and my lows. Since gaining a community through work and church, just to name a few, I've discovered courage, confidence, boldness, and more of my inner voice. I remind myself that I'm a likable person, and positive and impactful people have started to gravitate towards me. I found the balance in moments of solitude and periods of togetherness with those that I love. When was the last time you spent time with others in your community? Do you struggle with connecting with others? Do you feel unworthy of healthy relationships? Remember this: on your quest to building connections in your community, consider all that you have to gain. C. Continuous support. O. Opportunities for self-improvement. M. Motivational talks. M. Making new friends. U. Understanding the people around you. N. Networking opportunities. I. Ideas coming together. T. Trips, lunch dates, and other fun outings. And Y. You're never alone. Cheers to building communities and continuing to better ourselves.
Cheers, Daja. Thank you so much. To recap and to help us digest what she just said, I'm going to go over some things that kind of stood out to me that I really enjoyed. You know, she talked about, and a lot of it due to the pandemic, that she saw a season of solitude and that it worked for her for a while. And then the season expired, and then she craved community. I like the word crave. I like that she used that. And she allowed that craving for community to push her forward and toward community. And she said the only way that could have happened, that only way that could have been resolved was by her stepping outside of her comfort zone. It's kind of like how I end every episode. It starts with you. And she recognized that she needed to do that. And I wonder, and I kind of wanted to ask her, did the solitude, it was healthy, it was good for a little while, and then when it stopped being good, or it started to feel like it was expiring, I'm curious if that solitude began to feel lonely. Because there's a distinction to be made here, I think. That you can be alone without being lonely. And I would call that solitude. But when solitude becomes lonely, that turns into isolation. And when isolation happens, hiding happens. Actually seeking to be away from other people, to be out of community, active work to avoid community, that is isolation. And so my guess, I can't speak for her, but for me, when solitude begins to feel lonely, that's when I'm being confronted with my desire to isolate, to push people away. And then that reveals to me that I'm beginning to feel shame about something. I'm beginning to feel that I don't want to be found out, that I want to hide. And I don't know if that was what happened for her, but that's what happens to me when I begin to crave something in regards to community. Either crave to be hidden away. If I recognize that's bad for me, because been there, done that, then I can remember the good things about community, the good things about being known and seen, and the good things about receiving unconditional love. Remind myself of that. Then I begin to crave it again. Oh, that's what I need. That's what I need. And that isn't to mean solitude is done for and it is no good. In fact, she comes back to that, but we'll talk about that here in a second again. She talked about where she found community. And sometimes I think we make it too hard. Like, where do I find community? Well, look what's going on in your life right now. And for her, it was work. And she was trying to keep that kind of vulnerability, that closeness with others separate from work. But she's like, I spend 40 hours there a week. It's a big part of my life. I can't really afford to not invite that as community in my life. And so she said, it's already there. So I'm going to go there. Might as well make use of this place that I spend so much time at. Could work be a place that you find community? And maybe not. Or maybe you have to work a little extra hard to find the people at your work. Maybe you don't work in direct physical proximity to people you want to be in community with. Maybe they're on a different floor. Maybe they have a different role that puts them in a different section of the company or whatever. But what can you do to find those people maybe at work that might be good community for you? And she found that there. And then she also found it, she said, at church. And this isn't like a religion-specific podcast, but spiritual aspects come up all the time, and we encourage that because there's a lot of health research around your mental health that has to do with finding spiritual connection. You need that in your life. I hope you believe that there is a part of you that is spiritual. Even if you're an atheist, like how can you connect to things that are bigger than yourself, that hold more power, that are higher than yourself, a higher power? Maybe it's to get out in nature. Maybe it's to let your feet live in some water for a while or something, and to pull yourself outside of yourself. I think that is a good definition of spirituality, which that's kind of what came to me right now. Maybe it's spiritually inspired. I don't know. But she found it in a group of people at church where she rededicated her life to that spiritual tradition and to those people. And here's what I loved about it. And I think this is a good indication of whether this spiritual family is healthy for you, is that when she came back and she found people, she didn't feel instant shame. No, what she said she felt was instant love. If you feel instant love, that is a sign that you're in a good spiritual community. For her, it became spiritual family. She talked about spiritual parents and spiritual brothers and sisters, people that she's learned to lean on and learned to love unconditionally, and she experienced that back. Amazing. And from finding community in those two particular places, she discovered, or maybe even rediscovered, some things about herself, some courage, some confidence, some boldness, and more of her inner voice, which I love. We don't talk about our inner voice enough, and really that has so much to do with spirituality. What messages are you receiving on a spiritual level that no one shared with you? Something primal, something ancient, something sacred. What's speaking to you that you don't hear audibly, but you hear inside you, your inner voice? And that's what community does, I think. It holds up a mirror and it helps you see a more truer you, something that you can begin to see again if you've lost that image, or begin to believe again. And maybe even a voice that you can hear louder again, an inner voice that you've lost touch with. Because to her, like I just said, kind of this mirror, this community reminded her that she's likable and that there's something that attracts other people to her, other like-minded and impactful individuals, that she is worth that. That's what community does. That's what healthy, good community does. It says you're worth this. You're worth these good things in your life, and we love you no matter what. Instant love. I hope you guys are listening to this right now and go, oh, I want that. I used to have that. I miss that. Or I have that. I'm so grateful that I have that. And I want more of that. And then you're brought to a place that she talked about. The solitude wasn't bad. It revealed some things about her. It played a part in her life that worked for her. It was a season of importance, solitude. And now she's finding balance between solitude and community, that she can be alone, and almost community helps that solitude, right? Because community is telling us that you're worth it, right? And now she can be alone and not feel lonely. Finding that balance of being alone and being okay with yourself, and also seeking community and feeling that instant love and belonging somewhere. Both are important. Both belong. And so I'm going to repeat back to her the questions that she asked. When was the last time you felt this? When was the last time you experienced this sort of community? Are you struggling to connect? Hey, that's okay. Me too. Do you feel unworthy? Again, that's okay. And the best antidote to this, I would say, is finding a community that brings to you instant love, that offers to you this acronym, all these benefits that she says. And these benefits I'm going to read again. Find this sort of community that brings you the letter C, continuous support. The letter O, opportunity for self-improvement. M, motivational talks, people who bring to you, speak life into you, motivation, and bring up in you desire for bigger and better and more healthy things. Another M, making new friends. U, understanding people around you. N, networking opportunities. That's a great way to find community, or to even cultivate deeper community in the community that you may already have. I, ideas coming together. T, trips, lunch dates, and other fun outings. And then all those things coming together for the reminder of why. You're never alone. You're never alone. You never have to be. But what communities, what sort of hobbies and things that you like, guess what? There's like an app, a website called Meetup. There's tons of these opportunities to find community, to the point of, especially if you live in a bigger city. If you live in a smaller city, you might have to get a little more creative. Maybe you have to start your own. But if you live in a bigger city or a mid to big city, it's actually pretty easy. But the hard part is doing it, just doing it. And so I just want to continue to encourage you, as I do in the past, to get outside of yourself, get outside of your comfort zone, as Daja shared, and take some risks and find for yourself instant love in community. It's so good. It's so healing. It's worth it. It's worth the work. As we wrap up this episode, we find ourselves at the end and we do what we always do, which is find a reflection of ourselves, and we say a mantra to ourselves in an act of rewiring our brain and participating in what scientists refer to as neuroplasticity. The reality is the neurons in our brain aren't touching. There's electricity between them. So when you have negative narratives that go somewhere, your bad, habit or negative story that you tell yourself over and over again, though it may not be true, but you've chosen to believe to be true, can be rewired in your brain. Your brain is not hardwired in. You can change the wiring of your brain. We do this by repeating a mantra based on the episode. And today, when you find a reflection of yourself, will you say this? Today, I crave to go beyond myself and find a community that brings instant love. If your immediate reaction to that is, I don't deserve that, that's going to be so hard. Maybe you need to do some solitude, some inner voice work, some thinking. What brings that up? Whose voice is that? That's not your voice. Because truly, don't you want the best for yourself? If you don't, I recommend therapy. BetterHelp.com/YMH5 for 10% off your first month. Therapy is amazing. I love it. And when you do that work, once you do that work, actually therapy is a way to begin community. Someone, a professionally trained person, will hold up their professionally trained mirror at your face and go, this is who you really are. And maybe that's the kind of the kick that you need to, okay, now I need to go beyond myself and invite more people in. Friends, it's so important to have that in our lives. And we can hide and we can isolate. And that's a decision we make. Or we can seek solitude and growth and put in the work until we find those that see us for who we really are. And the response is instant love. But guess what? That starts with you.